All right, let's dive into a really fascinating and honestly pretty profound prophecy from the book of Zechariah. We're going to zoom in on just the first 6 verses of chapter 13. It's a passage that talks about purification, the end of all falsehood, and it centers on this mysterious set of wounds that has had people talking for centuries. So, right out of the gate, this thing opens not with judgment or some kind of threat, but with this incredible promise of grace. Now, we're not talking about a literal fountain, of course. This is a powerful symbol. It's a picture of a source of divine cleansing, a way for the people, from the royal house of David to everyone in Jerusalem, to be totally washed clean from sin and impurity. So, what does this cleansing actually look like? Well, the next few verses spell it out, and it is radical. This is a complete society-wide spiritual transformation. We're talking about a decisive and total removal of the corruption that had so often been a problem in the land. And when the Lord says a purge, he means a total purge. Idolatry is going to be so completely wiped out that even the names of the false gods will be forgotten. Think about that. It's not just about smashing statues. It's about erasing their memory from the culture itself. And right along with them go the false prophets and what's called the unclean spirit, the very deceptive source that was powering them. Okay, this next image is intense. It shows just how absolute the commitment to truth is going to be. It's so strong that it will actually override the most basic human bond we have, the one between a parent and their child. In this new, purified society, parents will be the first ones to stand up and condemn their own child if they're caught speaking lies in God's name. It just shows you how seriously this deception will be taken. And you can see this change playing out on a really personal level. The guys who used to dress the part of a prophet to trick people, they're going to literally throw off their costumes in shame. That rough garment, that hairy cloak meant to make them look like a true prophet like Elijah, it suddenly becomes a mark of disgrace. And instead of claiming they have some divine vision, they'll be desperately trying to just blend in, saying, "Oh no, not me, I'm just a farmer," trying to hide their past in this new world where truth is everything. And just when you think you've got the theme figured out, this big societal cleansing, the prophecy takes a sharp turn. It pivots from this big public scene to a very personal and very strange confrontation. And bam, just like that, the focus completely shifts. Everything zooms in on this one individual, and a direct question is fired at him. It's not about his words anymore or his clothes. It's about physical marks, wounds in his hands that need an explanation. This one question sets up the central mystery of the whole passage. And the answer he gives? It's just as stunning as the question. It's cryptic, it's personal, and frankly, it's pretty troubling. He says the wounds weren't from an enemy, they were from the house of my friends. This one single ambiguous line is the pivot point for 2 completely different ways of understanding this prophecy that have come down through history. So this leaves us with a massive question, right? Who is this wounded figure? Is he the last of the lying prophets finally getting caught? Or is he someone else entirely? This one verse has led to 2 major competing interpretations, one that's about historical judgment and another that's about future messianic redemption. Okay, so let's break this down. On one hand, you have the historical view. It says this guy is a disgraced false prophet caught in a lie. His wounds, they're self-inflicted scars from pagan rituals, and his answer about friends is just a desperate excuse. But then you have the Christian messianic view, which sees this as a startling prophecy of the Messiah, Jesus. The wounds are the nail marks from the crucifixion, and the house of friends, that refers to his own people who betrayed him. Let's look at that first reading. The historical context here is everything. We know from other places in the Bible, like the story with the prophets of Baal, that some pagan worshippers would cut themselves during their rituals. So in this new, purified Israel, having scars like that would be a dead giveaway of past idolatry. So when this guy gets confronted, he's cornered. He can't tell the truth about his scars, so he makes up a story about some fight with friends to try and save his own skin. But that's not the only way to read this, not by a long shot. Christian interpreters point to what comes immediately after verse 6. It doesn't stand alone. It flows right into verse 7, which talks about a totally different figure, a shepherd, described as God's own fellow, who is going to be struck down. And this connection isn't something people just made up centuries later. This is a huge deal, because according to the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus himself quoted this next verse, Zechariah 13:7, on the night he was arrested. He applied it directly to what was about to happen to him and how his disciples would scatter. That act of self-identification completely reframes the meaning of the wounds mentioned just one verse before. And if you need even more context, just rewind one chapter. Back in Zechariah 12, there's another jaw-dropping prophecy about a figure who is pierced and who the people will look upon and mourn for. So this theme of a wounded, betrayed leader is woven all through this part of the book. So when you look at it through this messianic lens, you see this incredible contrast being set up. On one hand, you have the marks of shame and deception, the wounds of the false prophet. But on the other hand, you have the marks of sacrifice and salvation, the wounds of the true shepherd. The very same image, wounds in the hands, ends up having two completely opposite meanings. And that's where this passage leaves us, wrestling with its incredible complexity. It forces us to ask, how can one single image, wounds received in the house of friends, represent both the absolute lowest point of human betrayal and, at the very same time, the highest point of divine love and redemption? It's a prophecy that really challenges you to see in layers, weaving judgment and grace together into one unforgettable vision.